And we're with saxophonist Judah Seeley, one of the reasons why the Flower City blooms. Judah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Judah, I've been asking everybody, so what did you learn about yourself in the past year?
Ooh, um, wow. That that wow, that's a great question. I learned that I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
My music has done very well. At times where I doubted my own ability and my own expertise in what I do, and to be to be validated for that, whether it's through chart success or through response from fans, is a great thing. Um, Even in the midst of a lot of things going on, and I don't take it for granted. So I say that I'm very blessed. I just say I'm very blessed.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of saxophonist Judah Seeley, and I'm thinking one of the things right behind you is a good reason to feel blessed.
Yes, yes, definitely.
For folks who can't see us, it's your daughter?
Yes, yes. That's my 1.5-year-old daughter. Well,
Yeah.
she'll be 2 in May, so it's a little more than 1.5.
Coming up on 2, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny though. So this has all happened literally in her lifetime. Everything that's gone on and changed, and
Yes.
speaking with Judah
Yeah,
Seeley on just yeah. Okay, now we got it.
That was. Oh, sorry, we're breaking up. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, she's almost 2, and can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. Yep.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, great.
All right.
I was just saying. Yep, I can hear you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed, and her and my family are a major reason for that.
Yeah. So that said, a lot of folks, it's funny, I've been talking to folks then, it's kind of one of the silver linings of 2020 and now 21. People have discovered jazz for the first time.
Wow.
So we have a whole new world of listeners who've discovered that they know nothing about the history of the music or the players. They just like it because it makes them feel good. So as an artist, Judah, for you, I mean, the whole word of what's essential has been tossed about. But I think, in my opinion, artists now are more essential than ever before, because think about where would we be without all the streaming things, to listen to music, the books we've read, all the binge watching of TV shows. That's all brought to you by artists.
That's right. That's true.
So I always think that more than ever, art's now more essential than ever before. But for you as an artist, you have to provide for your family. You have to create, balance everything else. You're also an educator, a teacher. So how do you do that and still keep your joy?
It's difficult. It's a balancing act. Learning how to say yes and no at the appropriate times. That would probably be the ultimate balancing act. I was talking to a friend of mine in the UK, and he asked me the same question. And literally, because if you say yes to everything, you can't do everything.
Right.
I mean, between being a music teacher and music director of my church, and also being a recording artist and a band leader, you have to be willing to say no. There's times in your career where you are supposed to say yes to everything, and yes can be very good, but also if you can't juggle all of everything, then you'll end up double, triple booking yourself, like I almost did today. Case in point. But yeah, so just knowing when to say, knowing what you are capable of, knowing your own limitations. That doesn't mean that you should stop yourself or lose ambition, but you should always know your own limitations so that you can keep all the areas in your life and your priorities in order, and
right.
That's how I've been able to do it. There was a time when I was saying yes to every single thing, but now I just say, no, I'm unable to do that, or somebody else might be better for that, or because I have this going on, I'm unable to do this. So that's is healthy.
It's funny you should say it, because a lot of folks think, especially as their career is starting to catch fire and they're starting to catch, you know what I mean? It's hard to say no, because it's a small window, it's a short window. And it closes quickly.
Absolutely. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's why I said there is a time in your career where you should absolutely say yes to everything, especially if you're just starting out. If you're just starting out, you should say yes to most things, especially if it's gonna, get you money, but also, get you exposure and all those things. But then that's why I said that I'm blessed, because there are some things that I was able to afford to say no to, and not everybody gets granted that. So I don't take that for granted. So knowing what and when to say yes and no to is very important. And you don't always know. Sometimes you say yes to something that you shouldn't have, and say no to something that you should have said yes to. So just pick and choose. You just got to know what things are right for you at the stage that you're at in your career.
Yeah.
And because I have multiple hats that I'm wearing, that's why I have to say no. If I were I don't want to say just, but to make light of the other things I'm doing, but if I was only doing one of the many things that I'm doing, like if I was only a recording artist, then I would be saying yes to a lot more. But because I have a full-time day job and, a family, that's when you say, okay, I have to say no to these things in order to keep my family happy. And I have to say yes to these things in order to keep my family provided for,
Right.
those kind of things, those things that you have to juggle, just knowing when and what to say yes to and what to say no to.
Yeah. Speaking with Judah Seeley here on Jazz 90.1. Judah, it's funny, since as an educator, what are some of the things that you try to pass on to your students in terms of the craft and the art of jazz?
I would say it's funny because what I teach them, I teach K-4, so kindergarten to 4th grade, so 5-year-olds to 8, 9-year-olds maybe, and they don't know what jazz is, and I have to tell them, I have a unit that I do, like the history of African American music.
Right.
And I cover everything from music pre-slavery, because people like to start with slavery and say that that's the beginning. It's not the beginning. So I have to put that out there. There was culture before slavery. There was kings and queens and all these types of things that were very, very, very important. And then slavery kind of stripped that away. But anyway, so I talk about that, and then I cover spirituals that came during slavery, and then I talk about ragtime and blues, and then gospel, and then jazz, and I always make sure to say to my students that if you desire to pursue music in your life, you will have to learn about jazz. And we could literally spend years talking about just jazz, because it's so rich and so complex. But they're 7 years old, they don't know, but I still expose it to them. And I say, this is jazz, and what makes jazz significant was the element of improvisation, and where you would, not just playing whatever you want, but knowing the rules of what to play and how to play. But there's an element of creation that is involved. Well, all music is created, obviously, but there's a music of spontaneous creation, I should say.
Right.
And teaching them that, even though it probably just goes right over their head. But I make sure that I say, this, if you desire to pursue music, this is something you will have to know. And they'll probably forget it, but then maybe when they get into 7th, 8th grade, they're like, oh, Mr. Seeley introduced that, Louis Armstrong to us. We talked about Duke Ellington in his music class, and we listened to a little bit of Charlie Parker, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so I do instill in them the importance and the complexity of jazz, but I can't get too far into it without losing all of them, because, they're 4th graders. So,
but that's when you start. But I think you hit the head. You start them young, where they're just learning about music and history and themselves. It stays with them for life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I make sure not to, skate over it and just say, oh, they're not going to get it. I do mention it, and hopefully that little bit of a seed is planted, and they remember that going forward. So yeah,
it's like religion. Start them young.
That's right. Right. Amen.
Speaking with Judah Seeley. So that being said, so Judah, how did you get started playing it? Who encouraged you to pick up the horn and stay with it?
That's a good question. My uncle, his name is Ellis Clanton. He was a saxophone player. Neither of my parents are musical, like, at all. My mom doesn't play any instruments. My dad played a little bit of guitar. He was born and raised in Barbados, in the Caribbean. And he played a little guitar, but I didn't know that until after I was a musician for years. So it didn't come from my parents, but my uncle played played saxophone, and I gravitated towards music. In sixth grade, I picked up the recorder, the little
Yeah.
flute instrument that everybody, starts on. But I really, really loved it. I was like taken to it. And so my music teachers at the time, they said, you should think about picking up the saxophone. And my mom had all these records around the house. She had the Kenny G records. She had a bunch of other stuff, and that was my first. And I would hear that stuff, and I would like it, not knowing what it was or why I liked it. And then when they said, you should pick up the saxophone, and then I realized that that's what Kenny G played. He played the saxophone, and so I kind of I made the connection. But when I was younger, I didn't really like it, because I thought that if I play saxophone, then they'll expect me to be as good as the people that I listen to. So I said, you know what, I'm not gonna take it seriously. I coasted by on natural ability and natural talent, but I didn't dedicate myself fully to it until much later in life, and that's one of my few regrets, is that I didn't put it aside because of imagined pressure. That wasn't even real. Like, nobody had that pressure on me. I put that pressure on myself. So I just picked it up when I was ready and put it down when I wasn't. But now I wish I had did that differently. But to answer your question, my uncle, he's the one that got me started. And then the rest is, as they say, history. So.
With Judah Seeley. So Judah, I mean, we were talking about just the things that we've had to deal with as a people, and then you had to deal with personally, and you're still dealing with. As an artist, especially a person of color, how do you help people? Because the purpose of your music is to give people hope and joy. But when you're dealing with issues, personal and professional,
Yeah.
How do you put that aside to stay on the path? Because it's a challenge. A lot of folks don't understand or want to talk about this because of
Oh, I know, I get it. That's a good question. So I guess I put all of my experiences into the music that I make. That's why it sounds the way that it sounds, and I play it the way that I play it. I always say that every musician has something to say, so I don't really think of terms of good or bad, like this guy's good, this guy's terrible. I think of in terms of, like, you have something to say that they don't have, that they may not know, and they have something to say that, you might not know. So we can all learn from each other. So I really take that every musician is on a journey. So don't compare yourself to other people's journey. I say that to say, because my experiences as an African-American inform the type of music that I make. And I'm not, exempt just because I make music that is enjoyed by, jazz is enjoyed by all people, even though it's an African-American art form. It is enjoyed by all people. And so I'm not blind to that. I mean, even last year when I was doing a Zoom, you may have heard about this. I was doing a Zoom last year, and with a nice, lovely young lady in the UK, and it was Zoom bombed by racist imagery, people saying racist words, and that scarred me. It scarred me like so deeply, because I've been blessed that I have not had to deal with those things like so upfront, even though I see it all the time and I'm aware of how I look. I'm aware of how I can come across. We are all aware of those things. So I'm always careful of that. I have to put on my nice voice.
Yeah.
When I, what I mean. So, but to have it that in such an environment where I thought I was safe to have that happen, that was very jarring, to say the least. Like, it was scary. So it's like, I'm not exempt. None of us are exempt from these things, and people have endured worse. People have had to. Our ancestors have had to deal with so much. So I can't say, oh, I'm a victim, because of all the things that I know that other people had to deal with. My parents included.
Yeah.
And so all of my music
is pain. It still hurts.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does. It does. It really does, and it did. But my music is informed by my life's journey, and that's and my life's journey is mine, and that's why it sounds the way it sounds, and that's why other people's music sounds the way they sound. I've listened to old school R&B. I incorporate that into my music. I listen to gospel. I incorporate that into my music. I listen to jazz. I incorporate that into my music. So it's my experience as being, you know, Judah Sealy have informed my life's music, and that includes being an African American man. So
Right.